Chapter 1. The Crayfish. My name's Alison Temple, and I used to have this line when people asked me if I'm married. I'd say, I'm waiting for Mr. Wonderland, and when I find him, I'll get married. Until then, I'm staying single. The kind of people who need to know whether or not you're married don't see the humour in a joke like that. I was married once for a while. I thought my husband was cheating on me. Sometimes he was late home and I'd stand at the bedroom window and watch the street. I'd lean against the window frame and press my forehead against the window in despair, and I'd wonder, who do you love more than me? In darkness, in silence, I'd wait until I saw him turn the corner on his way home. Then I'd go and lie in bed, waxwork, expressionless features, heavy, bloodless limbs. It was like one of those hospital nightmares where you have enough anesthetic to stop you moving or screaming, but not enough to stop you feeling pain. I would just lie there, closing my eyes to stop the giddy feeling that I supposed was anger, but was really relief that he was home at all. I was never sure which of us I hated more. Nothing tied me to him. Not money, children, or even much of a shared history. Just a sunny day and a white dress. I stayed because I didn't want to leave, but I hated him for not loving me more than anyone else. I stood at the window and I wondered, who do you love more than me? I never asked the question out loud. I thought if I knew he was seeing someone else, then I'd have to leave. I wouldn't need to lie there anymore, waiting until he was asleep to touch his skin to see if it felt different, if someone else had touched it. I was 24, and I felt debilitated loving someone who didn't love me enough. I didn't want to leave him over a suspicion, but I didn't want to stay. I waited for a sign, something that would settle the matter for me. One morning, as I looked through a local paper while I was waiting for the kettle to boil to make myself a cup of coffee, I saw an advert for a female detective agency, and that's how I found this place. Fitzgerald's Bureau of Investigation. Discretion assured. I hired someone to follow my husband for 2 weeks, and I felt comfortable that a woman was doing it. I thought she'd understand. Was he unfaithful? I suppose I knew the answer in my heart a long time before it reached my head. I didn't hire the agency to prove that he was cheating. I wanted them to show me I was wrong. Yes, he was unfaithful. The woman who had him followed was called Mrs. Fitzgerald. A tidy, authoritative woman in her late 40s, she has slightly curling hair cut severely short at the back in an old-fashioned crop. She calls her glasses spectacles. They're on a chain that she never puts round her neck. She waves them around or sets them down on the desk in front of her. Mrs. Fitzgerald has small, dainty feet and a large bosom and bottom. If you overheard a conversation about her in a butcher's shop, you'd catch a note of admiration when the men behind the counter called her a big woman. She handed me a colour photo that answered the question I'd never dared ask out loud. Do you really think he loves her more than me? I peered at the photo of Mrs. Fitzgerald's office. From my experience of detective movies, I'd expected it to be in black and white, but of course it's much cheaper and quicker to use colour film and get it developed in boots. No, I don't suppose so. She looks rather bony and ordinary to me. That settled things for me. I just packed up and left him. I could have clung to him and wept, charmed him, fought with him, tried to hurt him or save him if he'd been captivated by a bewitching superior beauty. Perhaps the photo didn't do her justice, but I was rather disappointed in this thin girl he was fiddling about with in the evenings. Apart from a fleeting impulse, which I resisted, to call his girlfriend with some hair and makeup tips, I chose to ignore them both and faded spectacularly out of my husband's life. That's not the whole story, of course. I wanted to get a can of red spray paint and write, "You ruined my life, you bony bitch," all over the walls of her house and the place where she worked. I wanted to shred his clothes and castrate him. I wanted to call the police and get him into trouble. I really wanted someone to tell him off so that he'd be sorry.